Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Aarna Sahu, host of Aarna's News, where on this podcast channel, I aim to eliminate the gender gap in the STEM fields by featuring inspiring female professionals and highlighting their stories and accomplishments to further encourage girls. On today's episode,
did I experience any failures in my career and how did I overcome them, or was it just easy going? There was so many failures, so many more failures than successes, and so many failures that felt like end failures. Like, this is it. Now it's finally not going to happen, not going to work. And usually when that happened, and that there's been 3 or 4 really big times like that, that's right before a major breakthrough. And I always had this quote up on my computer that, if you're going through hell, keep going, to get out of it. And I think that was Winston Churchill. And, I've looked at that so many times. And I think just never getting discouraged and you have to put aside the feelings of personal failure, but use that emotion and drive to really take the next step. And that's how it becomes powerful.
Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Aarna Sahu, host of Aarna's News, where on this podcast channel, I aim to eliminate the gender gap in the STEM fields by featuring inspiring female professionals and highlighting their stories and accomplishments to further encourage girls. Today, I am pleased to announce our guest, Annie Kritcher. Annie became a fellow of the APS for design of the first ever fusion, ignition, and target gain experiment and was named one of Times Magazine's 100 most influential people in the world in 2023. Annie was also named one of Nature's 10 list of people who made a significant impact in science in 2023. Dr. Annie Kritcher is the Integrated Modeling Team Lead in the Inertial Confinement Fusion, or the ICF program, and lead designer on experiments producing record fusion energies and first ever fusion target gain in the laboratory. She earned her master's and Ph.D. in nuclear engineering from the University of California, Berkeley, and her bachelor's of science from nuclear engineering at the University of Michigan. So thank you so much, Annie, for being here today. Before we dive into the questions, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, I think you did a pretty nice job of that, and thank you for asking me to come speak. I guess maybe a fun way to say all the nice things you just said about me is I really just chase starfire, fusion starfire. So happy to talk a little bit more about what that means.
Awesome. So my first question for you is tell us a bit about your career path.
So yeah, I mean, I didn't always know that I wanted to go into math or science or engineering. I grew up in a pretty small town in northern Michigan, and in my hometown, there's not a lot of physicists or engineers or scientists. So I didn't really have any exposure to mentors in STEM, and I didn't really know how to pursue a career in that area. I also didn't see myself as a stereotypical scientist, like what I thought a scientist should be. But I did have a lot of questions. I had a lot of curiosity. I love to figure out how things work. I wanted to know what the universe was made of. I wanted to take things apart and put them back together. So eventually, this curiosity and love of problem solving drove me into science and engineering, but I had to have a lot of help and a lot of encouragement from professors and teachers and friends. So eventually, that drove me to the University of Michigan, where I studied nuclear engineering. And I was drawn to nuclear engineering because I thought it was a bit more of a challenging engineering field and a lot of unsolved physics problems in nuclear engineering. And then after going to the University of Michigan, I came out to the lab here, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in Livermore, California. I came out as a summer intern. And I just thought it was such an amazing place. It's a mile by a mile. So it's a square mile of just project after research area and all this interdisciplinary type of stuff going on here. And really the smartest people I've ever met in my life. And so many of them. I just thought it was such an awesome place. And actually, that's where I first saw that we were attempting fusion with giant lasers here. I kind of actually, I think it's 21 years ago now. That's when I decided as an undergraduate in the summer program to do laser fusion. And so then I went to UC Berkeley for grad school, and I've been here at the lab for my entire career.
I love that. I mean, I love how you kind of like you found out what you were passionate about and you held on to that and you went to do things that, are making you super happy today. And I think what you're doing is really, really cool. And I think a lot of the audience members are really interested in your story and your path. So I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, so my question for you is what advice would you give someone wanting to pursue a career similar to yours? And do you have any tips to succeed?
Yeah, so I think like always keeping in mind that you don't have to fit a certain stereotype to do what you love. So following your passions. A lot of times women have feelings of imposter syndrome or self-doubt, especially in the STEM fields. I think recognizing it, being aware of it, but don't let yourself succumb to it. Respect what you can do, follow your passions, and know what you're good at, and know that you can be really, really good at math and science, but still like to dress up in, pink Barbie clothes or something. But that doesn't make you an odd person out. And I think intelligence can just have many forms. And so, like, all throughout my career, I had a lot of really great mentors. I've been very, very fortunate. But sometimes it can feel lonely, and sometimes you can feel out of place. So just keep in mind that, we belong here as well, and don't stop ever following your passion. I think other advice would be basically don't change who you are. Follow good mentors, like seek out the good mentors and stay with them. And then also finding out, like, as time goes on, how to manage work-life balance in a way that works for you personally. And so, there's a lot of times when if I had to give up on my work-life balance, I wouldn't have gotten here. And some people actually doubted I could have the balance that I have now. I have three kids. They're 5, 8, and 10. And I even went down to part-time, and I was told if you do that, you're not going to be able to do anything important or people won't take you serious. But then I went on to having one of the most challenging jobs here at the laboratory. So it didn't slow me down or stop me, but I was still able to make that space for myself. And so, putting yourself first, your family first, and really seeking out those good mentors.
Absolutely. And I think the point you said there is that STEM can be really lonely. And I think a lot of people don't actually realize that. Like, we kind of think that, okay, after high school, after college, it's going to be super fun. Like, everything's going
Hmm.
to be great. But that's usually not the case. For some people, it
Hmm.
might be, but for a lot of others, it's not. And I think what's really important, what you said, is to like find your people and to like explore, to like mingle with others, like, talk to the person right next to you. You never know, maybe that might be your next best friend at your work. But I think just finding your own tribe of people is really, really important. And it's also a really underrated skill that people don't necessarily think is important. So I think
Hmm.
those two are really cool. And also definitely agree with the work-life balance. Even as a student, like it's really draining because like 8 hours at school and then you come back to go home and then you have to do your homework and you have to like do all this other stuff. But just realizing that you should set time for yourself and enjoy like little moments here and there that make you feel free so that you can
Hmm.
just be happy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And my next question for you is what is a common myth about your profession that you want to debunk?
Let's see. So I think with nuclear fusion, a common myth is it's unsafe or like we're gonna blow up the world, something like that. People watch Oppenheimer, they see fusion or they hear talk about fusion in Oppenheimer, they think this is a different type of nuclear energy than I'm used to. And it's not like the old nuclear energy had a good rep either. That also had a pretty bad rep. But I think so, like to debunk that, it's when we do nuclear fusion with lasers, it's so hard to get the fuel, the deuterium and tritium, that we need to fuse together. it's so hard to do that that we need to actually burn up all the fuel in our system. So there's no chance of a runaway reaction because we are trying to burn up everything that we can because it's so hard. And so like what would happen is it just fizzles out. So there's no chance of like all the fuel sitting around in one spot and one reaction is going to start another reaction. It's no, we're only heating up a tiny little bit because that's all we can do, even with the biggest laser in the world. And if we could burn it all, that would be a huge success. So we are not, it is a very, very safe type of potential fusion energy.
Absolutely. And I love how you kind of mentioned that because a lot of people think that, with nuclear fusion, like that's the myth that you're gonna like make the world crazy, you're gonna like blow some stuff up, but it's really not the case. You're actually like
Mm,
you're trying to like do things that are helpful, not trying to like blow things
hmm.
up.
Yeah.
And if you could step into my shoes or younger self, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't?
So I've been really, really fortunate. I haven't had a lot of regrets or second thoughts. I thought a lot about this question that you sent me. What would I have asked myself? I probably would have told myself not to be as hard on myself as I am. But then I think about like, would I then have been as driven? I don't know. Like that's kind of what drives me too, is I have this, I'm always hard on myself and trying to do the best. So I think, hmm, that's the one I couldn't really. Maybe we'll come back to that at the end because I that one no one has asked me before, and
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure.
And I really like what you said there. Like, everything's like a double-edged sword. Like, if you went back and told yourself not to be too hard on yourself,
Hmm.
then, I mean, at least for me, like, I definitely have that drive. Like, I guess I can see where that could be. Like, it's kind of like an extreme. Like, there's like two ends. Like, definitely have drive, but don't push yourself down if you don't get something. I think
Hmm.
like for me, I struggle with that because I was, I'm gonna say was, but a little bit of a perfectionist. And
Hmm.
then it kind of like fizzled out like in high school because I realized that I need to make mistakes in order to learn. So whenever I would get like a point down in chemistry or I wouldn't get like a physics problem, I wouldn't feel
Hmm.
like I would still feel bad about myself. Like that will never go away, I guess, because
Yeah.
I don't think it'll ever go away. But I think just being more open to that for me.
Hmm.
But yes, we can definitely circle back on the question at the end.
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of sparked my a little bit of thought there for me too. So, I guess one thing, like pulling on what you said, is you could have asked me like, did I experience any failures in my career, and how did I overcome them, or was it just easy going? Um, there was so many failures, so many more failures than successes, and so many failures that felt like end failures. Like this is it. Now it's finally not going to happen, not going to work. And like usually when that happened, and that there's been like three or four really big times like that, that's right before a major breakthrough. And I always had this quote up on my computer that, like, if you're going through hell, keep going, to get out of it. And I think that was Winston Churchill. And, I've looked at that so many times, and I think just never getting discouraged and like you have to put aside the feelings of personal failure, but use that emotion and drive to really take the next step. And that's how it becomes powerful.
I love that. I've never actually heard that quote before, but I think it's a really good one. I'm definitely gonna look it up. But yeah, I definitely agree. And my next question for you is, what are the best resources or books that have helped you find your career?
So in terms of like shaping my love in math and science, it wasn't really math and science books that sort of sparked that. It was just like an interest I just had and I felt like the only one in my circle that had that. So I didn't really know where it came from. And I, use that passion and I love that through doing things. So like I'm less of a book person, more of a doing things person. But in terms of like helping me throughout my career, there were books. It's gonna sound cheesy, but I like the book series from Dale Carnegie. And he wrote a lot of self-help books, but he's really concise and, just kind of hits on the point. And because I'm a perfectionist, also, I worry about the future. I worry about every little detail of an experiment. I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about these things. And so sometimes when I do that, I read, the How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. And it sort of makes me, puts things in perspective. It helps me to sort of calm down and then recharge my batteries. So I do like, there's some simplicity about those books from Dale Carnegie that I really like.
I love that. And I think what's really cool about what you said is that it's not necessarily the math and science books that got you that interest, but it like kind of came from within.
Hmm.
And I think it's really important to realize that when you're learning something, it doesn't have to come from one resource. Like
Hmm.
like for me, for example, I'm interested in also math and science, but
Hmm.
I wouldn't say my textbook is my favorite book. Like I really wouldn't say that. But instead, like sometimes I'm a little bit of a history nerd, so sometimes I would just read
Ah.
like biographies of really
Hmm.
cool people who've done things. And I think reading things that I wouldn't normally read or just keeping myself open to new things is where I get a bunch of my information from.
Hmm.
So I think like what I'm trying to say, to kind of like keep it concise, is that you learn things in places that you probably wouldn't expect to learn them. So just keep
Hmm.
yourself open, whether it be finding biographies of really cool people or reading your textbook. Um, yeah, I think those could be really cool resources.
Hmm.
Yeah. And what do you think is a vital factor that shaped your career? What was your life before learning it, and what was your life after learning it?
So I think, yeah, I can think of an early turning point, getting back to my high school experience. Before I went to this high school calculus course, and sort of before somebody actually told me I was really good at math and problem solving, I actually never thought I was. I never acknowledged it. And basically almost all throughout high school, I was like, I didn't know what I was interested in. I knew I liked to figure things out, but I didn't see that as a career path. I didn't think I was good at it, and I didn't know where I was going. And then when it became clear that I sort of stood out and like, I'm good at this thing, um, in that class and with some colleagues that also I remember like people I looked up to, like, oh, you actually scored higher than I did. And it's like, oh, I didn't really try that hard. And, like finally I'm good at something. But then I like started to think about what a life could be as an engineer, as a scientist, and I got really, really excited and it really sparked something in me. And I just everything's a possibility. And I've just been super excited, which is another reason I love the lab too, is like there's so many different things that you can do here, study, learn, research. And so, having the world as a possibility of you're not just tied to one type of engineering or one type of physics, and being able to explore all of those really, really fun things is that. So that was a turning point for me.
And I think that's really cool. Like the example where the people that you looked up to, you actually scored higher than them on
Hmm.
like your calculus. Like that's really cool. And because we have some additional time, my question for you is what's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career?
So I think I mentioned a couple of things already, which like, the failures. Again, this is one of those things where it's like you kind of have to live through the failures to, to be fueled by them. But maybe knowing a little bit in certain decisions that things were going to work out just fine and there was no right or wrong decision. I think that sort of thing could have helped me quite a bit. Um, I think, let's see. I just feel like I've been really fortunate and kind of almost on a straight path. I was fortunate to come out here and like really be excited by this project, by the Fusion project, and be able to work on a lot of different aspects of it. And so I think, like, looking back, I'm not sure I would have told myself something that I know now that would have changed anything. But another thing that we can come back to if I jog my memory.
Yes, of course. And I really want to add to this one. I liked what you said about like the failure part where I think as like students, we kind of see situations like regarding them as either all or nothing, and we have that type of
Hmm.
thinking where like either I get an A in this class or I'm just never gonna pass. And I think that type of thinking has like it's not I would say that it is a very I don't know, I don't have the word for it, but it's not the healthiest mindset to be
Hmm.
in. And I would say that while that does give some people drive, like it gave me a lot of drive, early high schoolish, I also burnt out a little bit like last year and the year before that because I had that thinking.
Hmm.
So I don't know, I feel like it's good to have that drive, like what we came back to. It's good to have that drive, but there is definitely a spectrum. And that's what I
Hmm.
would tell myself. Like, if I could just
Yeah.
go back to kindergarten, I'd be like, yeah, everything's not that deep, but at the same time, do push yourself. But it's
Hmm.
okay if you make mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really nice way to put it. I think I would
Yeah.
have also told myself, to enjoy the downtime more. So, like, another thing that I have trouble with is separating my work from my personal experiences. So, I always am thinking about something in the background or analyzing a situation. So, developing better sort of separation between my own emotions of work and thinking about work and experiencing life separate from work. I think I would have told myself to try to do a better job at that.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. But it's okay. We got it.
Yeah.
And my last question for you before we end off is how do you continue to learn in order to stay on top of things within your role?
Also, a really good question. So, I continuously read um, scientific papers. So we have our textbook references that we always go back to like occasionally, but really it's about learn people publishing new work in scientific journals. We have physics review letters. We have Nature, Science, kind of high level, and then other journals in my area of research. So constantly reading papers, listening to presentations, having meetings with trying to learn from other people, figure out new things that are going on. And then also collaborations with universities. So the Livermore lab here is close to UC Berkeley. We also have a lot of ties with the other UCs, and not just the UCs. There's a lot of lectures now that we give at courses across the country, University of Michigan, Cornell, and that kind of keeps you sharp in a different way because younger people are really curious and have really different ways of looking at things. So through their questions and what they want to learn about and how you have to change your style to teach them, it also keeps you learning and staying on top of things.
I love that. And, learning can come in many forms. So that's one way.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. Well, I think that wraps the interview. Thank you so much, Annie, for being here. Before we end off, do you have any last words to the audience?
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. And I think the fact that you're doing this is really amazing. I didn't know of anyone doing something like this when I was your age. So I think just, it's awesome for everyone listening that you're pursuing STEM. And I just really want to encourage you to keep working hard and don't ever, get down on yourself or anything. Just keep working hard.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Annie. I absolutely love talking to you.
Same. Thank you, Arna.
Thus, that concludes today's episode. If you want to know more about how I relate to these amazing topics, then stay tuned for upcoming episodes. A free way to support this show is by leaving it a 5-star rating and a review on the player you are listening to. Let me know what you enjoy about this podcast, as it's a chance to tell me what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it too. Once again, thank you for finding me, and I hope we stay in touch with each other. Dito, you're listening to Aarna Sahu, the host of Aarna's News. Toodles!